Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast from still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me down there in beautiful Miami, where when it's hot like it is here in East Tennessee, you actually get to go to the beach. You get to cool off, where Wes Goldberg of Locked On Heat, Locked On Dolphins, RealGM Radio, the West Side with his donuts column every week. He's all over the place. Wes, good afternoon. Good evening, rather. How are you?
I'm well. I will have to correct you though. Going to the beach in Miami does not cool anything off. It's like going it's like going into an outdoor pool if you were on the surface of the sun. It might help a little bit, but it's really not solving any problems.
So I have a question. Are you like, my wife and I, we've always talked about, like, if we retire, will we retire in the mountains or in the beach? And I think we're both mountain people, but she loves the beach, but her big hang up is the sand. Is there a sand problem going in and out? Do you have sand everywhere? Because when we go, it's like, it kind of gets hard. Do you even notice the sand when you're a permanent Miami resident? Is that even on your radar anymore? How does that work?
You do notice the sand, and you notice it more when you leave the beach. Now, some of our nicer beaches, like the sand will just kind of naturally fall off, but you've got some sticky sand beaches, and if you know, right? Like you know that you don't necessarily go to Fort Lauderdale Beach because you are going to end up getting sticky sand. But if you go to South Beach, you might get some of that more powdery sand that falls off a little bit. Although certain parts of South Beach, not necessarily. But you've got to find the right beaches, because if you get that sticky sand, now it's in your car on the way home, and it's a whole ordeal. It's tough. To be honest, man, I like the beach. I like to see it from a distance. I'm more of a pool guy. Give me a pool near the beach.
Okay.
No sand, no mess. I like to live in that space.
Are you a chlorine or a saltwater pool person?
I'm chlorine, man. Give me all the chemicals. Make it. Just let's go.
I will tell you, saltwater was a game changer. There's one YMCA that has a saltwater pool where I did my lap. So because I'm an old man in so many different ways, we're both 35. We're just we're trying our best out here. Joints aching. Yep. I broke my foot the week of my wedding 4 years ago, and part of the rehab, because I was like an everyday runner. I was a long distance runner for everything, and it's like I have arthritis in my foot now from where I broke my foot and all that kind of stuff. But like, I had to make a change, as I was getting back up, and I didn't like swimming. And they were like, "You can swim. That's a good thing to like get back in it. You get the same kind of stuff." Wes, you don't get the same kind of feeling. It's not the same as running 3 miles. It's not as hard as you press and everything else. I get the breathing part. I hated it just wasn't for me. I tried it for months, and I was like, I'm just not getting it just doesn't do it. I can't do the pull and the laps and everything else. I don't know. It's just not me. And then once you go from chlorine to the saltwater, you're like, oh, this is living. Like Matthew McConaughey, LIVIN, over there in the saltwater pool. But outside of that, I wish I loved the pool more.
My father-in-law has a saltwater pool. He swears by the maintenance part of it. It's a lot easier to take care of than a chlorine pool. But
interesting.
I'm with you, man. If I had to swim in order to exercise, I don't know that I would exercise. It seems like a lot. I much prefer to run. I much prefer to lift and push things around. I don't need to. To me, a pool and the beach are really just. I like being around water because I grew up around water. Yeah. But I'm not really going in the water that much these days.
We don't need to as adults, really.
No, it's really the water is there to drink and smoke cigars near, and that's sort of. It's less weird to do that near the water.
Yeah. That's true. Which, Wes, naturally leads us to other strange things, like the NBA offseason, which is very much in the thick of things. Things are very quiet, unless there's some folks, like there are Miami Heat fans who are like, Wes, when's DeMar DeRozan signing? What's going on there? When's it going to happen? When is veteran X going to sign with the Heat to fill up this roster? But before we get into some Heat stuff, now that you've had a couple months to think about it, Wes, like who has had the strangest offseason to you? Because to me, there's a lot of candidates like this right now.
There are, right? And we're still in the middle of a little of the crazy stuff. I mean, we could talk about Kawhi Leonard and where he's going to end up playing. Is he going to end up in Toronto? The Clippers, obviously have had a strange offseason for maybe some different non-basketball related reasons. But I would love to give you a really creative answer. I just don't think I can because I do think there's a clear number one, and it's the Boston Celtics. What a strange, and you can even make this expanded to a couple of off seasons, but they win the title in 2024, and the talent drain that has hit that roster in the last couple of years has been so overwhelming. And it's not to say that there's not talented players, obviously, like Peyton Pritchard and Derek White are really good. They find Neemias Queta, who's awesome. Hugo Gonzalez looks good as a rookie and all these things. There's still obviously still talent. They still have Jason Tatum. But to have the year that they had, to be second place in the Eastern Conference despite losing Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford and then and Luke Cornett and not having Jason Tatum for most of the season, to finish the year in second place because in large part what Jaylen Brown was able to lift for you guys. And then to turn around and so unceremoniously just trade him in what amounts to a salary dump for Paul George. I don't know the last time I've seen a trade quite like that, right? This guy was literally getting MVP votes, and they were like, nah, we're good.
Yeah.
And, I hear that Brad Stevens, in the press conference talks about, well, it's really a salary cap thing, and 70% of our cap tied in Tatum and Brown. There's ways around it. You could have traded Derek White. They were never going to trade Derek White. It was a little dishonest the way that Brad Stevens sort of presented the argument. At the end of the day, if they really wanted Jaylen Brown, they would have kept Jaylen Brown, but they didn't. And so and that whole arc and that whole narrative and everything about, are they going to trade Jaylen Brown for Giannis? Are they going to try to move him to another spot and create room to sign somebody else or sign LeBron James or whatever it might be? Like, there's so many things going on, and then for them to end up just getting Paul George out of it and then really not make any other major moves. Like, okay, cool, you got Mike Conley to come off the bench. Is he going to play for you? Is that like a locker room leader type deal? What's going on there? It's a very strange offseason for a team that ultimately might just end up in the same place that they were last season anyway, despite all of it. And so I think the conversation around it, the way it all happened, and where we are now with Jaylen Brown going to one of your biggest rivals, if not your biggest rival in the Philadelphia 76ers, I just think all of that has to take the cake as the strangest offseason.
Can we also throw out, though, my favorite thing they did, which was basically like an old school just middle finger to the Knicks who just won the title. Like, we're going to go ahead and take Mitchell Robinson from you. Great deal. Like, they, I guess, needed Mitchell Robinson, but the Knicks, I would argue, needed Mitchell Robinson a lot more than the Boston Celtics did. You talked about Queta, who has been awesome, and they just develop guys, the way they play basketball and everything else, just with Joe Mazzulla's just obsession with threes and at the rim, and just like they play an extreme version of basketball, and that's kind of like why this offseason, I wouldn't say it. It's like if Joe Mazzulla maybe wasn't the coach, I would have been more like, what's the Celtics doing? But I think they look at it as like, we got our star and we believe in our system over anything else. Like, we can replace Jaylen Brown in the aggregate. Like, they clearly value, like you said, Derek White more than Jaylen Brown. He does more things as a multifaceted role player. They want guys who can do that. Like Jordan Walsh, they paid. Hey man, he's got a role. He's a great role player. He's one of the best perimeter defenders. Like, he is going to be solid those 3 years. Like, we love Hugo Gonzalez. We're not giving up Hugo Gonzalez for Giannis and everything else. Like, they have their guys. Clearly, they have some they value more than others, and they value the role players, right? Like, they believe that Tatum can carry all of these role players to another title. Like, that's the message it sends to me, that they think if they just stockpile their system and the math and these role players around Tatum, who they still believe is a top 5, top 10 player, they're like, yeah, we can do it. Like, we can figure it out. Like, we can still win a title even without Jaylen Brown, but we would rather have a healthier collection of role players than having to really get squeezed on the role player side of things by paying Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And obviously they prefer Jason Tatum, as they should. Like, Tatum is a better basketball player than Jaylen Brown, and everyone's taking Tatum over Brown every day of the week. But so I don't know. I think it's an interesting bet, and it's also one that you can do if you're the Celtics because you just won the title, right? Like, there's things around it where you're like, there's some, there's already proof of concept. Like, Brad Stevens is one of the few president of basketball ops who had the kind of cachet to make that kind of swing, like you said. And also, if it blows up in Philly, or they look like genius. Like, this is kind of a win where they're like, we're going to be really good, because I think the Celtics have a safe high floor, but The Sixers probably have a higher ceiling, I would say. I don't know if you would agree this year, but there's easily a scenario of a non-healthy Embiid through 3 rounds. The Celtics make it further than the Sixers. Like, I don't think this is the best landing spot for Jalen. Like, especially with LeBron ending, like, I don't think this is a great situation for him. I think it would have been better for him to be in Boston. I could even argue Milwaukee would have been better for Jalen Brown. And I think Milwaukee, I don't know if you feel the same in the Miami side of things, but I mean, I would rather, I know they didn't want to like be in the middle and purgatory if they traded for Jalen Brown for the Giannis type of package, but I don't know if they understand how dark it's going to get for how long. And when you're wandering the NBA wilderness, like the Washington Wizards have been doing, and I mean, there's just so many franchises like that right now, the Sacramento Kings, everything, it gets dark very fast and it gets very hard to crawl out of. So I don't know, and especially with the lottery changing and all that. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but yeah, it's such a fascinating thing because there's so many sliding doors with the Bucks, with the Celtics, with the Sixers, the Heat. Like, it's all very fascinating.
Yeah, I was here arguing that the Bucks should have just traded for Jalen Brown.
We're on the same page.
Fine. Yeah, I thought that was an absolutely fine outcome, and everybody's like, well, what does Jalen Brown mean for them and their new timeline and all these things? And I was almost just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just know that Jalen Brown's a good player, and I like to have good players on my basketball team. Now, I guess that's the other part of this strange offseason is Jalen Brown a good player? That was sort of the big debate is analytically he's this. Watching the eye test, I think honestly he falls somewhere in the middle. Is he a guy who is going to routinely be in the MVP conversation? No. Mm-hmm. He might have just had the best career or the best season of his career. Yeah. And if he retires and we look back and we say, yeah, that was the best season of Jalen Brown's career, I don't think anybody would be surprised by that. It was a really good season. I also wonder if what he was talking about that being the most fun season that he's had of his career, despite the fact that they lost, and clearly embracing being the number one option, and some of those weird kind of comments that he made, I do wonder if that gave Boston a little bit of cover to make the move that they wanted to make. And just be like, you know what, it's probably time that we cut ties with Jalen Brown. And to your point, right, yeah, Brad Stevens has the cachet and the resume and the credibility to pull that off, right? He absolutely does. They won a title 2 years ago. Every move that he's made has basically been a home run over the last 3 or 4 years. So he does have the benefit of the doubt. But I also wonder if part of that was, yeah, you know what, like, we're kind of ready to move on from this guy, and now that he's said some of these things, it gives us a little bit more cover with the fan base, because even the fan base is a little like, hey, that was really weird that you were kind of saying that, and we really love our guy Jason Tatum, and it doesn't really seem like you minded that he was not available for most of the season. So, yeah, I agree with you. Look, I think Joe Mazzulla is an awesome head coach. He would have been my vote for Coach of the Year had I had a ballot, because I think the system stuff is great, right? Obviously, the system itself isn't like interesting. Like,
I was going to say, do you enjoy watching the Celtics on League Pass?
No,
I don't either.
Do not. No,
yeah.
They have eliminated all of the friction from basketball. They don't play against defenses. They simply shoot over it. It doesn't matter if you have a good defense or a bad defense. By the time they get 30 feet away from the basket, that ball's going up. And it's incredibly boring, and I would argue even frustrating, because you know that there's a better version of basketball, at least aesthetically. Yeah. Right there, because Jason Tatum's that guy and Derek White is that guy, and there's like really a lot of interesting players, and they're just like, nah, we're good. And then when they lose, by the way, in the second round the last 2 years, they haven't been back to the Eastern Conference Finals since they won the championship, right? It's very easy to say, well, instead of chucking threes in the fourth quarter, maybe you should do something else. And I do think that part is frustrating, and I do think they realize that part of it is all frustrating. And instead of trying something different, the one guy who was really good at not doing all those things was Jalen Brown, right? He was the guy that would go in the mid-range, get the tough shot, get the contested shot. And instead of going with him, they swap him out for a guy who does what? More of what the rest of the Celtics do in Paul George, who's going to be mostly just a 3-and-D guy. And I think they're really happy about that, which I, again, find interesting because of what Brad Stevens said at the end of the year, where he was like, we actually need to figure out a way to get to the rim a little bit more, and maybe we need to change some things. And they were just like, actually, no, we don't need to change anything. In fact, we need to double down on all of that. And so I'm very fascinated to just see the extent of this system that Joe Mazzulla has in place here, because are they going to invite, I think Mitchell Robinson is the thing that Celtics fans would say, well, we have him, so now we have a rim presence. I'm like, I guess for 30 games in a season? Yeah. The guy's not super available, and when he does play, he can't play a lot of minutes. And he does get into foul trouble quite often. So I don't think that that's the big solution that they were looking for, especially when we were, kind of talking about them in the Giannis conversation. So, I think the Celtics are going to be good because I think Missoula's that good, and I think their development system is that good, and I think their system is proven. I just think now it's not about the regular season, it's about the playoffs for them.
Yeah, 100%. Let's talk some Heat. So everything about the Heat, I think people have completely lost their mind on the Heat in 2026. I don't know if you feel the same, but the worry about the Heat is very silly to me, where there is a lot of, like, I was talking to somebody, I think people think Giannis has been, like, broken down for years. I think there's this idea that the decline is there, and it's like, did y'all watch Giannis last year? Like, Giannis was fine. When he was playing basketball, Giannis is still very much a top 5, top 10 at worst player in this league. Like, Giannis Antetokounmpo is an excellent basketball player still today. Like, that is a huge win, and you do that deal 10 times out of 10, where it's like, I don't know, what are you really building for if you trade for Giannis and you give up Tyler Hero and all these pieces? And I'm like, you're trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo. You're trading for a top 5 player, like healthy, a top 5 player in the league. What are we talking about? And also, this is the Miami Heat. Like, if there is one franchise who you're like, yeah, obviously, we're trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo, it's Miami always. Like, that's how Pat Riley has operated for 30 years. You wait for these kind of moments, and I think it's kind of unbelievable that they've been able to go from Jimmy Butler to Giannis this quickly. Like, a lot of teams wander the wilderness for a while. I mean, think about how long the post-LeBron Heat were wandering the wilderness before things kind of, like, part of that was out of their control with the Bosch stuff, but, like, ultimately, they wandered the wilderness for a long time. They didn't bottom out, but it also was just kind of like, as you know, man, what is the next step here? Like, when are we going to kind of, like, get back to contention after a while? And been to 2 finals as an 8 seed. Like, I'm just not doubting Spo. I understand there are issues with filling up, and we joked here at the top with DeMar DeRozan and all that kind of stuff, but, like, Davion Mitchell's a good player. You go through it, keeping Andrew Wiggins is huge. Obviously, Bam is going to be awesome, and Bam and Giannis is going to be such a pain in the butt for everybody in the East. Like, everybody, no one wants to go up against these two, and you can stagger them. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with these guys. But, like, are you on the same page with me, or people are really overthinking the Heat with Giannis? And also, like, I think they're a play-in team. Like, they're not. If Giannis is healthy, they're not a play-in team. And also, I don't care if you put the Heat at the 8 seed. If Giannis is healthy in a 7-game series with Spo and company, it would not be the craziest thing in the world if the Heat make it to the Eastern Conference Finals or beyond. We just saw it with Jimmy. Like, we've been through this. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, when you said it felt like you were taking crazy pills or something at the start, I agree. I just don't really understand. This entire process, even before the Giannis trade, was, well, the Heat's package is garbage. The Heat's package is garbage. Yeah. And then they trade for Giannis, and it's like the Heat lost all their depth for Giannis. I was like, well, was it garbage or was it important? Yeah. Because you can't have it both ways. Yes. And now it's, they're not deep. Look, they definitely lost players who played for them last year, obviously, and good players. I thought the people saying it was garbage, I thought was way overstated. Tyler Hero is a really good player who has kind of been bagged on unfairly over the last few years because of the guys that he's been in trade talks about, whether it was Donovan Mitchell, Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, or Giannis. Khalil Ware was a bright young player. Jaime Jaquez Jr. played a major role for them coming off of the bench. They lost real Duke. Kasparis Jakubonis was an interesting rookie who I think Miami really wanted to keep out of that deal and what is sort of the last thing that they had to include to make it to get it over the top. But none of them are Giannis. Yeah. And I will double down on the point that you made in terms of him. Like, he is not close to being broken down. People act like this guy has some sort of crazy Joel Embiid-like injury history. Yes. He does not. He played 36 games last year in part because he was shut down in the second half of the season because Milwaukee was openly tanking. You go back the years before that, he was 65-plus games most of those seasons, or right there about 70-plus games a season. That's what star players play now. 65. They get to that. That's what Luka played. That's what Shea played. That's what Anthony Edwards played. Like, that's just what these guys play now, and Giannis is playing that. Go back and look at the numbers on Basketball Reference. In January, he was playing at an MVP level. January. That was 7 months ago? 5 months ago when at the time of them making the trade?
It's just us watching on League Pass. We're like watching it. Like, we watched this on League Pass. It was right there.
You don't even have to watch. Literally look at the stats. Like, people just can look at the stats. It's like, 30 points per game, double-double, averaging. The assists were off the charts. The guy was putting up Shaq-like numbers at the rim. I mean, the guy is still the most dominant finisher in the game, and it's not close. It's not close. Nobody competes with him. He is Shaquille O'Neal of this generation, and he's still in his prime. He's 31 years old. And people are acting like this guy is totally washed up. I'm telling you. The other thing I hear all the time is, oh, well, Miami's just going to be Milwaukee South. People also act like that's an insult. Yeah. They had a bad year last year because Doc Rivers was playing golf in his golf simulator in the office instead of coaching that team, and they shut down Giannis in the second half of the season, and they had all of that Damian Lillard dead cap money, and the roster was in complete shambles. But go back, every year of Giannis's career, that team is competing for 50 wins. Every year. 50 wins or more. And that team won the championship not that long ago. So calling Miami Milwaukee South does not sound that bad, especially considering in the last few regular seasons this has been a play-in team every single year. For this to be a 50-win team would be a godsend in this market. It would mean avoiding the play-in tournament, being a top 6 team, probably better in the Eastern Conference, even with the East being as deep as it is now. Yeah, I look at that, and I also think people are way focusing too much on what this team isn't versus what we know them to be. Yes, there are concerns about depth. Yes, there are concerns about shooting and more specifically spacing around Giannis and Bam. What does this team have? It's got Giannis and Bam. Yeah. It's got a bunch of great defenders around Giannis and Bam. Davion Mitchell at the point of attack, Pella Larson, Andrew Wiggins on the perimeter. It's got Eric Spoelstra coaching this defense. This, to me, is a guaranteed top 3 defense in the NBA. It won't be lower than that as long as there's not some sort of major injury. Offensively, there are questions about the shooting, but they also have Giannis, who is, like I said, Shaquille O'Neal at the basket. They have Bam and Giannis, who are insanely high IQ basketball players. Bam and Jimmy were not good basketball fits either. They were not. Neither one of them were a floor spacer, and yet they made it work because they're such high basketball IQ players. There's a tic-tac-toe level of passing that they have in the paint that they were just able. Hey, we don't need the space. We can make baskets in a storage locker, right? We can make this happen. And now you're throwing Giannis in the mix with his lob and dunker spot stuff that he's able to do that nobody else since really, LeBron James was really doing for Miami at any point. So you've got that. You've got Eric Spoelstra coaching them and figuring it out. I trust him to figure out a system that works. I think there's a lot of things that this team has, including the best player in the Eastern Conference and the best coach in the Eastern Conference. Second best coach if you really think highly of Rick Carlisle, which I do, but I would put Spo a hair above him. I think this team has so much stuff going for it that it's easy to focus on the negatives when we're just so obsessed with three-point shooting in NBA media space right now that I think we tend to forget what these teams have when they maybe don't have a ton of three-point shooting. And just my last point on this. The Spurs and the Knicks weren't exactly lighting it up from three-point range either last year, and they were the 2 teams in the NBA Finals. You don't need to be an amazing three-point shooting team to make the Finals. You have to be efficient from certain areas of the floor that are efficient. One of those areas is at the rim, and I do think that this Heat team is going to be efficient at the rim. They're going to have to make threes. They're going to be tested. It's not a perfect team by any stretch, but I think there's way more strengths with this team than people are giving them credit for.
Yeah, it goes the Spo part of it with Giannis, and the Heat just deserves so much of the benefit of the doubt here with how they've handled stars. They just know what they're doing. Like, even though the Jimmy stuff didn't end well, that we'll talk about here in a second, like, they maximized Jimmy Butler. Like, Jimmy Butler was a different player, different level. Like, yeah, the regular season wins may not have been there always, but like you said, they play the long game. Like, 65 is fine. And I think there might be people like, oh, Giannis only played like 65 games. It's like, that's okay. Like, Giannis can be at that point because, like you said, that's just the modern game. And until they change the rules, until we get rid of some games, like, that's just kind of what you have to do because we're playing an extreme level of basketball that is just not good, especially for the big guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I don't know. I just don't think we're anywhere close to the fall off for Giannis. And like you said, it feels very lazy how much he's been kind of associated with the Embiid part of it, where it's like, Embiid, I'm 100% on, and I love prime Joel Embiid. I wish I didn't feel this way. It's not going to work. Like, the Sixer stuff is not, none of this is going to work. Like, Embiid's not making it 4 rounds. Like, he's not, like, I don't know. I wish we could turn injuries off like it's 2K. I wish we could, but it's not going to happen. Giannis can. Giannis absolutely can play through 4 rounds, and Giannis can absolutely be the best player on an NBA champion in 2027. So, and that alone is enough reason to explain, well, why would the Heat give up that much? Like, you had to give up, like, when you're talking about I don't know if they should given up. How do you pronounce his name? Because that was the throw in Jacunius. Jakachonis, yeah. Where I'm like, I get it. You like him. It's kind of like that Hugo Gonzalez thing where it's like, yeah, right. You're really excited that you found one there, but you're probably going to find another one because you're really good at identifying role players and you're still going to trade for Giannis. That's going to hurt a little bit, but that's not going to be the reason. And particularly Pat Riley, that's not going to be the reason Pat Riley did not do a trade for Giannis. So it's like they're going to be awesome. So I think we're both bullish on the Heat, and I'm happy to buy that over going into next year. I think they're going to be very awesome. And I think Giannis with a chip on his shoulder, a little scary for the rest of the East. On the Jimmy front, though, in full transparency here, I love Jimmy Butler. He's been one of my favorite players of this era. Part of it is that Jimmy plays a completely different style than everybody else does and is just kind of like, I'm doing what I'm going to do. And that's part of what bums me out so much about what happened in Golden State, where it's like just the difference between his style and Steph Curry is just amazing to see. It's just so different, and it worked. And watching him on League Pass, it was like I cannot believe I'm ever watching Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry cook, and I hope he comes back healthy and all that. But Jimmy Butler, I think will be forgotten by NBA fans in terms of he brought the Heat to 2 finals. He got them very, very close. Heat teams that had no business making the finals, Heat teams that he did so much. And I'm not saying he deserves a statue or anything else, but I kind of wonder from your vantage point, how will you always see Jimmy? And do you think fans will see him in the same way, even though he didn't bring a championship? Will they look back at him as he's one of the best Heat ever? Because I think he's one of the best Heat ever. And I don't know. It really bummed me out how the Jimmy Butler era ended in Miami, because I felt like both sides, man, y'all really made it all work. This was all really awesome. I wish it didn't end this way, because y'all are great for each other. And I don't know. I hope he's able to go back, and I hope he's able to have a good relationship with the Heat post playing career, because that's what I always think of him as, is he was a Heat and he guided some teams where I just love watching the Heat play basketball with him in the playoffs, and how he played his own way and he was able to almost win a championship in a style that I don't think most people thought you could win a title with in the modern game.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's got that bent over the stanchion moment in the bubble finals in 2020 is sort of this iconic Polaroid that people will just always remember. Flashbulb moment, and people seared in the brain. It was disappointing in the 2023 finals. He didn't really have a moment, but that Denver Nuggets team was such a juggernaut, and people forget Jimmy was hobbled at that point. He had a bum ankle because of a collision with him and Josh Hart in the second round against the Knicks. So he was drained of his powers a little bit in that series, although I still don't think that the Heat beat that Nuggets team. But it is a complicated legacy that Jimmy has left in Miami because of the way that it ended. It was really, really bitter, hurt feelings there at the end, to the point where it got personal. And the things that I would hear at the arena from employees of the team or people around the team, I mean, just the stuff that hasn't even been reported or talked about. It was even more bitter than what it looked like on the outside. This was not an occasion where it was both sides just saying stuff to look better. I actually kind of think both sides were holding back a little bit out of respect. But it was clearly personal and totally bridges burned at the end there. And I don't know that ever is repaired. Because I think about guys like D. Wade, who obviously came back during his playing career. LeBron James and Pat Riley hashed it out later while LeBron was playing. Shaquille O'Neal had a really tough ending where he almost basically fought Pat Riley and then was traded. And they've made up. But Shaq is gregarious. He wants to be everybody's best friend. D. Wade, I mean, what the Miami Heat mean to him, it's his organization, just like it's Pat Riley's, Mick Harrison's, Eric Spoelstra's organization. LeBron James is very similar to Shaq in the way that he ultimately does want to be loved.
Yeah.
Jimmy does not care about that. And I do wonder, man, I don't know that Pat Riley at this stage is going to care about that either. And I don't know that people in that organization are going to care a whole lot about it either once Pat Riley eventually does leave. and Jimmy Butler does eventually retire, it's going to take an olive branch, and I just have a hard time seeing who extends it and for what reason, right? The only way I could see it is years and years, like 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, where they're like, it's January, we kind of need a jersey retirement night. Let's reach out to Jimmy. And it's just Jimmy Butler totally cooled off in retirement, living in Madrid somewhere, Brazil, something like that.
Still well caffeinated.
Still well caffeinated. And then
owner of Chelsea FC.
Right. And then just a bunch of Heat decision makers who just weren't around at this point. So it's a really tough legacy, but it's also it is a little fitting also because Jimmy did embody the Heat culture stuff so much at first and then basically walked away from all the Heat culture stuff at the end, where it was a lot of talk about Heat culture and not really a lot of walking about Heat culture, right? He took a lot of games off during the regular season. The reason they were in these play-in games was oftentimes because of Jimmy Butler sandbagging the regular season and really just waiting for the postseason. Like you always wanted, covering it on a day-to-day basis was honestly a little frustrating, you know, because it was like he could do more and he's not. And you look at the stats for the last couple of years that he was in Miami, he's basically Tobias Harris in the regular season. And then he would become Michael Jordan in the postseason. You're just like, well, I don't understand why this makes any sense, but yet here we are, and this is what's happening. But if you were just a little bit better in the regular season, maybe we didn't have to play in the play-in tournament. And if we're not in the play-in tournament, maybe you don't get your knee crushed by Kelly Oubre in your final playoffs moment for the Miami Heat before you end up getting traded, and all these things. So. It's just it's a weird legacy, but ultimately the way I think about the Jimmy Butler Heat, I do kind of think it's perfect that they never won a championship because they were ultimately just the villains for the rest of the league, and the villains never really win at the end, right? Some hero always overcomes, but they were the boogeymen for everybody. Whether it was the Lakers, where they just wouldn't go away, they would not die in the bubble, and they ultimately meet LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the bubble, and they were able to get it done, but like they even extended that series in a way that nobody thought they were once Bam and Goran Dragic got hurt at the beginning of that series. And you know, the boogeymen for these Boston Celtics that had just been so close over and over, and they were sort of that final hurdle. You know, they were just always there. They were always beating New York. They were always beating Philadelphia. They were always beating Atlanta. Like all these teams that thought they were on the up and up in the Eastern Conference at that time and just could never overcome the Miami Heat. They were the ultimate villains, and I think that's just a kind of cool thing for them to have been.
Man, I think that's a great way of putting it. And can you imagine how much more complicated it would have been, though, this breakup if he did win a title?
Yeah.
Because I think he'd have a lot more fans who are like permanently on his side, you know, and that would have made things even more uncomfortable for Pat and everybody else, where it's like, yeah, we want to move on, but like he won us a title. And like you said, he was Michael Jordan the postseason at times. Like, we got to figure something. He's put us in a spot where we have to figure out something. And honestly, like getting him to the finals twice, like look at where we're at as a league, you know, like it's a parity driven league. He got to the finals twice in 4 years. Like, yes, he didn't win, but I mean, it was not like he got there twice in 4 years with the San Antonio or Oklahoma City rosters of the last year. Like I'll always have the utmost respect. And I just love the postseason Jimmy is just one of my favorites. And I guess I'm kind of drawn to guys like that, like Kawhi. Love Kawhi. Always looking for the next Kawhi, looking for the next Jimmy. Jalen Johnson, as much as I would love for him to be either of those. He's great. He's a gazelle. He's a lot of fun. Multi-time All-Star. I think that's why I love Dyson Daniels. He's my favorite Hawk. My wife is just like, she'll walk in and she's like, "What? Why are you yelling?" And I'm like, "Dyson, the barrier thief. He's out here again, just hounding."
Just got a 7 steal.
Yeah, like it's just great. I'm like, you got to understand. I'm like, here, let me sit down. This man is the worst 3-point. Here, it's like I'm setting the scene. He's the worst 3-point shooter in the NBA. I like that. That is true. He's terrified of shooting threes at this point. If he puts one up, no one's around him. He's gonna airball it and he might even catch his own airball. Like this, but he's also gonna have 6 steals just in this quarter alone. He's gonna have some of the best cuts you've ever seen, and he's gonna be a plus 14 in 28 minutes. It's just an absolute delight. I can't explain the Dyson Daniels experience until you watch a full season of him on your team. I love Dyson Daniels. But it's like those kind of guys where in the 3-point heavy league and everything else where it just seems like so many guys are robotic, I like different styles. So I just think those kind of guys stand out more to me, and also the guy just cared so much about winning, where it's like there's been so much about Westbrook, right? And I got to be careful with this, because part of the reason I respected Westbrook is because I was such a big Steph guy and everything else, where it's like, I think some people have done some revisionist history and some of the writing and podcasting lately, and I'm like, I seem to recall all of us, like you and I, we were in that space in our 20s. I don't remember a lot of NBA writers being like, I love the Russell Westbrook experience. I love, like, what we're watching a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's a lot of like, this style is just not for me. I don't think Russ can be the best player on a great team. He's not a good shooter. This is not going to age well, this, that, and the other. And I respect Russ. He had a great career, but like, it is, I don't know, just a little bit different, where like Jimmy was like a better version of Russ, where they were very hard, very all-time competitive. Like, you're not sure if it was fun to be their teammate. Like, I'm not sure if you enjoyed playing with. I know that some people did not enjoy being teammates of Jimmy Butler, but you also couldn't deny that Jimmy Butler is one of the best players of his era and made everybody better. Like, he elevated the team in a way that very, very few players in this league have ever done in the last 20 years. So I don't know. It's very, very interesting. We're talking about him like he's retiring too, but I guess it's just more of like he's 36.
Well, we'll see. I mean, he's coming off this big knee injury and stuff. I mean, we'll see what the next version of Jimmy Butler looks like. But there is a way that there's a world where it does kind of look sad, right?
Yeah.
Because he also doesn't have his athleticism was starting to go towards the end there anyway, and you hope that this isn't like sort of the end, and he ends up sort of being this empty shell of himself after this. But
he seems like a guy to walk away, right? He doesn't seem like he would do it.
He would walk away 100%. Now, he's got money on the board, which is why he's going to finish out this contract. I'll put it that way. But he's also such a smart IQ player, high IQ player, and he can do a lot of his work in a slow down, kind of just use his shoulders and burrow his way to the basket. The problem is if this knee really hampers what he can do defensively, then we have a problem. But he's maniacal. The work ethic is there. You hope that he can come back and at least be a high-level version of himself.
We kind of touched on the parity part of it, and I'm curious from your vantage point, Wes, like, do you think this new champ every year stuff is good for the league? Do you think it's bad for the league? Do you think kind of like where it's the NFL a little bit, where I think the NFL is at the sweet spot where you have a Patriots dynasty, but then you have a couple of different ones. And then you have another dynasty, the Chiefs dynasty. And then you have a couple different ones. Like, I feel like that's where you ultimately want to be as a league, is where you still have some dynasties that pop up every now and then, but still a lot of teams rotating in and out outside of that. But the league doesn't have that right now. There's like, everyone wants to say the Oklahoma City Thunder and San Antonio Spurs are the next dynasty. It's like, all right, I mean, we'll see. Like, the last decade almost says otherwise, but I guess we'll see. I mean, there are people predicting this Knicks to win the title next year, and I'm like, all right, I mean, maybe, but hasn't happened in a while, so I guess it could happen, but I don't know. Where do you land on this right now?
I think it's great. I think it's great, and I love the fact that, and I wrote this for RealGM a couple months ago. There was a lot of complaining about the fact that there hasn't been a dynasty, right? And that the second apron and everything keeps dynasties from happening, that because of Adam Silver's salary cap, he's killed any Oklahoma City Thunder, Boston Celtics, and people like teams from kind of keeping their teams together. And because of that, there will no longer be a dynasty. And my point the entire time was, dynasties are supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
That's what makes them feel rewarding, is that they're so unbelievable. If we just rolled from one dynasty to another all the time, if we went from the Warriors dynasty to the Celtics dynasty to the Thunder dynasty to the Spurs dynasty to the Utah Jazz dynasty, it would feel empty, right?
Yeah.
Who would care about that? Nobody. It's just like, oh, I guess it's this team's turn for 3 or 4 years. I'll tune back in half a decade to see if my team is the one that gets the lucky pinball next time. No, dynasties are supposed to be hard. You are supposed to lose good players in a salary cap sport. That's how this works. And the NBA enjoyed a fake salary cap for a very long time, where rich owners were able to spend a lot of money. The richest owners were able to spend a lot more money than their contemporaries on these teams and keep their dynasties together. Or you had the Spurs where you just had Tim Duncan being like, I'm good just making $12 this year. And they'd be like, all right, awesome. We could build the team around you. And then they get this amazing Kawhi Leonard thing where they trade George Hill in the 2013 draft and blah, blah, blah. But dynasties are supposed to be hard. Mm-hmm. And if we go 8 or 9 years in between of parity where every team feels like they have a legitimate chance to win the whole thing, and then all of a sudden this dynasty sort of naturally emerges, whether it's the Thunder team or the Spurs or the Knicks or whatever the next time, there will be a next dynasty. There will be. I promise there will be. My bet is still the Thunder, by the way. But it's not a guarantee, and it shouldn't be. And I do think when we ultimately get that dynasty, it's going to feel a lot better and a lot more rewarding and a lot more, maybe not rewarding for that team and that fan base, and a lot more impressive for all of us looking on than this era where it felt like, hey, just go out and trade and or sign for a bunch of star players, and maybe you can be the next dynasty, right? Which is what the Clippers were banking on when they tried to get Kawhi and Paul George, or what the Brooklyn Nets thought they were getting when they got Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and then James Harden a little bit after that, or what Philadelphia kept trying to do over and over and over again, sort of post Sam Hinkie process stuff. And all of those teams found out how hard it is to actually put a championship team together in the first place. And now it's even harder. I do think that the league is rewarding the right things. I do like the fact that, hey, just because you drafted a guy doesn't mean you can keep him. Right? I think about the Kansas City Chiefs all the time, and I wrote this in a separate column for RealGM where everybody was complaining about the second apron, and I said, this is what a hard cap looks like. Look at the NFL. It doesn't mean you can't keep a championship team together. It just means your championship team is going to look a little bit different. The Kansas City Chiefs won a Super Bowl with Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. Tyreek Hill got too expensive. They had to make a decision. The obvious decision was to keep Mahomes. You trade Tyreek. Chiefs fans were upset about it. But what did you do? You found your next group of wide receivers. You started running the ball a little bit more. You improved your defense. You found other ways to win with your main star player, Patrick Mahomes, still there. And that's still possible for the Boston Celtics. And they're kind of in the process of finding that out right now. It's going to be harder, but I think it's going to be a lot more impressive when it eventually does happen because of it.
I love it. I think you sold me because I was going kind of the other way. I think you flipped me here, Wes. I think you flipped me.
Mission accomplished.
There you go. Final one here. I'll get you out on this. More likely to combust in 2026, 2027. Cleveland or Minnesota for you?
So I saw you had this question in the rundown, and that's why I didn't answer Minnesota in Strangest Offseason at the top of the show. They might have actually had the strangest offseason. They traded for LaMelo Ball, okay? Take the
sidebar on the LaMelo thing.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy watching LaMelo Ball play basketball on League Pass?
I do not.
Okay.
50% of the time, and I very much so enjoy watching him the other 50% of the time. He is such a mixed bag. I never know what you're getting with him. There were more, I would say more often than not last year, I really enjoyed watching LaMelo, but he was also played under 30 minutes per game, and the offense shifted a little bit away from him. But he was really important to the Charlotte Hornets overall, and I do think they're going to miss him more than people think as a driver of their offense. But this is not a Hornets segment. His performance in that play-in game against Miami was so frustrating from a basketball perspective, because all of those things I just said, he just completely went the other way and took 80 steps backwards in the play where he took 30 shot attempts.
He was
awful. Completely reckless and was, awful, not getting his teammates well. It's a miracle that they won that. And they won that game because he kind of injured Bam Adebayo in the middle of that game.
Well, and also Tyler Hero hit a shot that will be lost to the ether forever.
Agreed.
And all time, I woke my wife. Like, that was that was bonkers. Great Tyler Hero shot.
Great Tyler Hero shot. Needed one more, but they didn't get it. So the fact that now LaMelo is on Minnesota, this can either, I compared this to like a high budget Marvel movie earlier today, where, look, I know the characters. I'm excited for these characters to be on the big screen together. That's interesting. I don't know that the movie's going to be any good. This can either be an awesome blockbuster smash, or it could be a complete flop on opening weekend, and we're going to just know right away, oh, this wasn't it. And I kind of feel like that's where we're heading with this Minnesota Timberwolves team, where it's either going to be awesome, and it's going to be like this incredible Fast and Furious movie, or it's going to be horrible, and it's going to be a really bad Fast and Furious movie. Like, I don't really know what it's going to be until we see it. And they're going to be like on the top of my League Pass rankings like the first 2 weeks of the season, because I can't wait to find out. But To answer your question, what has the better ability, higher likelihood of flopping? I do think it's the Minnesota thing because I also think about what has changed over the last couple of years. So they make 2 straight Western Conference Finals by playing big, right? Super big. Gobert, Towns, Naz Reid, McDaniels playing the 3, sometimes toggling down to the 4. They switch out Towns. They get Julius Randle, a little bit smaller, but still big, very physical. Now all of a sudden, 2 years later, they're really small. And now they still have positional size across the board, but they don't have comparative size against these other teams, and they don't have that ability to play these super big jumbo lineups. And maybe that's ultimately a good thing because they obviously hit a ceiling, and maybe this was the right way to pivot, but it is such an extreme pivot that I think it's really hard to project where exactly it's going to go. The Philadelphia 76ers, I agree with you, what you said earlier. I don't see them winning the championship because I still think as much depth as they have, as much talent as they have, Jaylen Brown for Paul George is a win. You get LeBron James at the minimum, huge win. You're still a Joel Embiid team. You still need him to be available and be out there. And he doesn't even have to be MVP level Joel Embiid. He just has to be available Joel Embiid. And I don't know that he's going to be available Joel Embiid. And the backups behind him, I really like Adembona. I've liked him since UCLA. I don't know that he's a starting level center for a team that's going to be in the finals or potentially in the finals. So I still have my questions about them. I think the other part of this, though, is I'm very prepared to be wrong because LeBron James is literally batting 1,000 on this. Every time he's decided to go to a new team, that new team has won a championship within the first couple of years of him being there. He's never been wrong, ever. I don't know why he would be wrong about this other than the fact that he's older and this is kind of a different situation than he's ever had before. But he does tend to have good instincts on these things. So I'm very willing to be wrong or very open that I could be wrong about this. So I think, that's my long-winded way of answering your question of I think Minnesota is the team that has the highest variance. I think Philadelphia is going to be very good. And if the definition of flopping is anything less than winning the finals, then I think there's a good chance that it's the Sixers. But if we're going to be satisfied with the Sixers merely being a very good team that could be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, then I think we're pretty much guaranteed of that, even if I think their ceiling is pretty hard.
I'm with you on the Wolves. The Wolves thing feels like I feel bad for Wolves fans because they've come very close, obviously. You have a top 10 player. You finally hit a home run with Ant. Ant's unbelievable. Ant's even evolved to where he's now playing unethical basketball where it's one of those where he has to do it, but he's playing a style where I'm like, I want you to be Jimmy and Kawhi, and you're doing kind of like a, I guess, I feel, is this a hot take? You would take him over Tatum, right?
Yes.
Okay. Like, he's playing a better version of Jason Tatum ball, it feels like. Where, like, Ant would love Boston's system. Like, it's just one of those where it's like, oh, that's the thing. It just, to me, feels like they're trying these final last things before the star player asks out. Like, this is that final swing where we're like, we've gotten very close. This man he's entering late 20s zone. Like, this is it. Like, this is just where things go in the course of a franchise. And it's like, I don't even think Minnesota's done a lot wrong. Like you said, they've gotten very close. Tim Connolly has been bold in a lot of his choices, and they've worked for the most part. Like, he's made some big swings that have paid off in a way that didn't bring him a championship, but back-to-back Western Conference Finals in a loaded West is huge. He's been smart about a lot of stuff, but, like, I've watched too much LaMelo ball. I don't think it's going to be fun. I don't think it's hard for me to see LaMelo Ball in Chris Finch's system. To go from Mike Conley as your lead to LaMelo Ball is going to be a little jarring.
Yeah, you went from we need Mike Conley because he's an adult in the room to we need LaMelo Ball because he plays fast and he's a little reckless and also he's available. And we need and Mike Conley got old.
Yes.
And look, Naz Reid was bad in the playoffs. Julius Randle was bad in the playoffs. They trade both of those guys, ultimately get LaMelo Ball in the equation. So it's not like, you're trading guys who underperformed in the playoffs and you felt like you had to pivot, and LaMelo was available and he's out there. If they fully embrace playing fast, and I do think there's a version of this where Anthony Edwards is in the open court a lot more, playing fast, quick decision making. There's a version of this that looks really interesting, I think, for Minnesota. But I think LaMelo could be that trigger man. Does Anthony Edwards rub off on LaMelo, or does LaMelo rub off on Anthony Edwards? Because if it's the latter, they're screwed. If it's the former, then we might be cooking with gas.
I mean, I want to see it. Like, if I was a fan of the Wolves, I'd be mad at this offseason. I would have been like, this kind of sucks. This feels like the end of my favorite player of my generation being 6 months away from asking for a trade. But also, as a Hawks fan, I'm just over here, like, kind of maybe pushing this out into existence of, like, I just don't think this is going to work. Just, hey, we got Lou Dort and a lot of nice contracts. It seems like Ansi Saleh is out here. Ansi Saleh is out here accumulating a lot of good mid-tier contracts where there's a certain Atlanta local that might be available 6 months from now. And I'm like, I just selfishly would love Anthony Edwards to be on my basketball team. So I am kind of rooting for, unfortunately, sorry, Wolves fans, for the downfall of LaMelo Ball in Minnesota. But yeah, I'm not a believer in the Sixers. I'm not a believer in the Wolves. I think I would sell probably on the Nuggets too, which is really sad. But also one of the weird things I'm hoping for is Jokic to do the most Jokic thing of all time and just leave to go overseas next summer. Like, where it's just like, yeah, I'm out. And then we just never see Nikola Jokic ever again. He's just like, no, I'm good. This was, I had a good run. And then you're the Nuggets, but I don't know what they do. They're kind of screwed by their own success in a lot of ways, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of combustible teams, Wes, in this league going into next year, but I'm really excited. I am really excited about what this league could look like next year, because there's a lot of people who are like, I think it's a rematch, Spurs Knicks, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if you're like me, but I would be much more surprised if the Knicks got back than the Spurs got back next year.
I don't know that I would be more surprised if one or the other. I haven't really given that specific question any thought. I would tell you I wouldn't bet on either of them being back in the finals.
Yeah.
I think we're just gonna have a new matchup.
Yeah. Wes Goldberg, what can the good folks check out from you all across the internet this week?
Let's talk more NBA over at RealGM Radio, Locked on NBA Daily for more NBA content. That's the best place to find me for more NBA content.
There you go. Well, keep up the great work, man. I mean, all the Heat folks watching, all the Dolphins folks, national NBA folks, make sure you're subscribed to all of Wes's great shows and read his newsletter. It's always great. I like reading it. Fridays,
Thanks,
does
man.
it come out? I think
Friday Donuts every Friday. It's for most part every Friday, but hopefully dropping one this week.
There you go. I love it. Wes Goldberg, always a pleasure, and we'll have to check back in again very soon.
Thanks, Chase.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.